video, I will be reacting to all 11 dimensions explained in detail, the many-world interpretation by the Eureka Factor.
Hi, so you are a three-dimensional creature in a three-dimensional world.
Is that Emu talking?
What? No, this can't be happening again. This is a dream, this is a dream, this is a dream. In the fifth dimension, that could be true in one of the many branching timelines. But fortunately for you, my featherless friend, I'm here in the flesh to tell you all about the 11 dimensions.
Well, we don't really know that there's 11 dimensions. Like, there could be like over 20 dimensions, or there could be much less.
Now that you've pulled yourself together, here's the point. It has no size, no direction, it cannot be measured, and technically cannot be seen. It has no width, no height, no depth, no length. It's simply a location, but it doesn't have an address. But this...
Well, it would have an address. It's just that when you go to that address or that location, you wouldn't really know that anything is there, because a point is something infinitely small, meaning that it's too small for you to see, but it's also too small for anything to see, regardless of how small it is. Like, it's smaller than the Planck size, which is the smallest that something can be in the universe, because it doesn't have a size.
This is where everything starts. Every shape, every object, every galaxy, every failure in your insignificant life all starts by stacking directions on top of this lonely little point. In coordinate geometry, we place this point down as the origin, 0, 0, 0 in 3D space, or just plain 0 in simpler setups. The point is infinitely small and isn't made of anything. It just is. Okay, but if I can't see it or measure it, does it actually exist? That's a philosophical question, not a scientific one. So, you don't know. You're asking a...
Well, I mean, I see it as that a point does exist, because if it didn't, we wouldn't be able to build further dimensions off of it, and we know from experiences that 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions are real, because we are, like humans, and all the other animals as well, are 3-dimensional beings. So the fact that we exist shows that a point exists.
Being a bird, whether a mathematical abstraction is real, we're both doing our best. In summary, the point is where everything begins. Now, let's get out of this void. Your anxiety's making me itchy. How do we do that? Move that point in any direction. Congratulations! You just invented direction, distance, and the entire concept of somewhere being different from somewhere else. This is the first dimension. Meet the line. It has length, and only length. You can move forward or backward. That's the full list. There is no side.
Yeah, so the point that he was talking about earlier, that is dimension 0, and then dimension 1 is a line, so just like up and down, but it has no width. And then 2-dimensional, as most people know, is something that lacks depth, so like a square or a circle, rather than the 3-dimensional equivalent, which would be a cube in the case of a square.
Sideways, there is no up. There is no escape. If you lived in one dimension, your entire universe would be an infinite line. Mathematically, the first dimension is clean and elegant. Describe any location with a single number. This is where x equals 5, or 10, or 10 billion, and we don't yet know why. Get it? We don't know why, because we're in the first dimension. Interesting. That joke worked on my first pet human. Anyway, just give me one number and I know everything about your position. Physicists love this. It's effortless. It's also, in terms of interesting things that can happen, basically nothing. You need at least 2 dimensions for things to get complicated. So, off we go. Now you have both x and y. Your line can now be pushed sideways or perpendicular to itself. It sweeps out a surface, a plane, infinite in two directions, and I present to you the second dimension. Now you have width and length. You can go left, right, and forward, backward. A 2D universe is a flat sheet extending forever, and creatures living inside it are flat shapes.
And interestingly, there's actually it's pretty well known that at some point in history, some people believed that the Earth was flat, like something like a disc. So basically, those people thought that we were three-dimensional beings living on a two-dimensional planet, which doesn't really make sense. That if the Earth is two-dimensional, we should be two-dimensional.
Triangles, squares, circles, hexagons, sliding around on an infinite table, bumping into each other and living their flat little lives. But here's the thing about 2D creatures, they cannot see each other the way we would see them. From inside a 2D universe, you can only ever see the edge of another shape. If a circle and a square are standing next to each other, the circle doesn't see a square, it sees a line. Everyone looks like a line. The only way to tell 2D creatures...
Yeah, because there's no depth, so when you look at the side of the shape, like, there really is no side, so it just looks like a line. Like, it's kind of like a sheet of paper. Now, it does have a thickness because obviously we live in a three-dimensional world, but its thickness is so small that it looks completely flat to the average human eye. So if you look at it from a side view, it does just kind of look like a line.
Creatures apart is by subtle cues like the angle of their edge or the texture of their surface. However, the second dimension gave us everything visual. Maps, diagrams, hieroglyphs, the Mona Lisa, every screen you've looked at today. It is staggeringly profound for a universe with no depth. But if you poke a finger from 3D down into a 2D plane, the Flatland residents see something terrifying. A cross-section that appears from nowhere, changes shape, then vanishes. To them, you'd be a god, a shape-shifting entity from an impossible direction. They build mythologies around you. Is this where you go when you're not tormenting me? Shh, off to the third dimension. And we're back home, the third dimension, the world you've lived in every single moment of your existence. 3 dimensions means length, width, and height. It means objects can have insides and outsides. It means you can walk around something. It means spaces and depth perception, and the fact that when you reach for a glass of water, you can actually touch it. The third dimension is why everything you've ever loved exists in a form you can interact with. Your coffee mug is 3D. Your dog is 3D. Every one of your physical interactions requires the third dimension. Three-dimensional space has a specific, deeply non-obvious property that makes it uniquely suited to complex life. Many physicists argue it's the only number of spatial dimensions where you can have stable orbits, and the inverse square law for gravity, and knot theory, and the kind of neural wiring that produces a brain complex enough to wonder about dimensions in the first place. 3 is the specific, narrow, almost suspiciously convenient number that allows matter to form, stars to burn, planets to exist, and life to emerge.
Well, yeah, because our entire known universe is three-dimensional. Like, the Earth is obviously three-dimensional. It's a sphere. The Sun is a sphere, and actually, most planets and stars aren't perfect spheres, but they're close enough that they look like they are. But they're still all three-dimensional. Like, asteroids are three-dimensional.
I mean, the universe didn't have to do this. It could have stopped at 2. It could have gone to 4. It chose 3. Or physics chose 3.
Well, it didn't exactly choose 3 because there isn't like a central brain of the universe that we have any evidence of. So it's really just more of a sequence of events that just happened to lead us there, and it was just as likely to stop at 3 as it was to stop at 2. They're both just random numbers and dimensions.
It's 3. Or 3 is the only number that works, depending on your philosophy. Huh, that's actually really interesting. Not as interesting as the next dimension. Have you ever had a moment where the waiter brings you your meal and says, "Enjoy," and you say, "You too"? It becomes really awkward if you start staring off into the abyss, trying not to make eye contact while thinking, "I really wish I could go back in time and take that back." Well, that thought was brought to you by
the fourth dimension is generally believed to be based upon time. That's the extra thing that it has that the third dimension doesn't, as in, like, the third dimension has depth, and that's what makes it more advanced than the second dimension. So the fourth dimension has time, and that's what makes it kind of one step more advanced than the third dimension.
The fourth dimension. You've been moving through it since before you were born. You're moving through it right now. You cannot stop, you cannot slow down, and you most certainly cannot go back.
Yeah, and because we know that time exists, we know that the fourth dimension exists, it's just that it's difficult, if not impossible, for us to comprehend because we are not four-dimensional beings.
The fourth dimension is time. Not time, the vague cultural concept, but time as a literal physical axis. Einstein's relativity tells us that space and time are not separate things. They're one unified fabric called space-time. Every event in the universe has 4 coordinates, 3 telling you where, 1 telling you when. Your address in the universe isn't just a place, it's a place at a moment. Change any coordinate and you're at a completely...
Yeah, because physical locations change depending on the time. Like, even just the location I'm sitting in right now making this video, it was very different, even just like 15 years ago. Like, instead of this house being gray, it was mostly red, so the reality of places changes with time. So that's why time is important to space.
Completely different event. Here's what time as a dimension actually means. For instance, if there were a completely hypothetical 4D being or something that could perceive time the way we perceive space, they would see your entire life as a single object. Not as a sequence of events unfolding one after another, but as one thing, all at once. Your birth and your death and every Tuesday you've ever experienced completely laid out. To such a being, asking...
Yeah, we perceive time as, different times cannot coexist. Like, yesterday is gone permanently. It was a thing, but it's not now, and it never will be. The only time that exists is this exact instant, this very millisecond, or whatever the shortest version of a second or time is. But according to the fourth dimension, time isn't just one single thing, that every time exists simultaneously, in a sense, and it doesn't cease to exist just because it already happened. And if the time hasn't happened yet, the time is still there, it just isn't right now.
Where is this person would be meaningless without also asking when. You'd need 4 coordinates or you'd have nothing. The light from the sun takes 8 minutes and 20 seconds to reach us, which means we see the sun as it was 8 minutes ago, not as it is now. We never see the present. We only ever see the past at a distance determined by the speed of light. The now we experience is not the universe's now, It's a bubble of past light converging on our retinas, which we call reality. I think I need to sit down. So, our reality is in the past. A square is 2D, a cube is 3D. What's 4D? The Tesseract. It's a 4D.
Well, he's claiming that because we perceive the sun as it was 8 minutes ago, you could really perceive that as the opposite, that what existed 8 minutes ago is actually the present, and we are living in the future but experiencing the present, because for the Earth, the present is the same as the sun 8 minutes ago.
The hypercube and an infinity stone. Oh, what? Never mind, off to the 5th dimension. Everything up to the 4th dimension is real, in the sense of being directly measurable. You can move through 3 spatial dimensions, and you're being dragged through the 4th. These are physical facts. From here, we enter the theoretical and speculative. The 5th dimension is all possible.
Yeah, so we know for a fact that there are a minimum of 4 dimensions. We just don't know if there are only 4, or if there's like 24, for example, or if it's something in between.
Possible timelines branching from your universe based on your choices. Every decision. It's the same game of chess played from every possible opening move simultaneously. This is the what-if dimension. What if you went right instead of left? New timeline created. What if you kept that engineering job instead of dishonoring your family by becoming a YouTuber? New timeline created.
Yeah, I do think that so far based on what he said, that the 5th dimension probably exists because there are different timelines that we know that things would be different depending on what decisions you make. I mean, if there's smaller decisions, things could turn out the same, but just the action of making a decision is fundamentally different to the action of making a different decision, or just refusing to make a decision at all. So those are all creating different timelines and different realities, and you just chose one specific reality.
What if your father came back from that milk run, leading you to becoming an emotionally stable human who feels loved, instead of spending day after day filling that dead feeling inside with oodles of alcohol and ketamine? New timeline created. A 5-dimensional being would see all these timelines. They would see the job you didn't take, the conversation you didn't have, the time you got catfished, the time you got ghosted, the time you got catfished, ghosted, submarined, then ghosted again. In the 5th dimension, they all happened and did not happen. They exist as distinct paths through a...
Well, I don't think that's really accurate to say that they happened and did not happen. They definitely happened. It's just that you, as your brain and your consciousness didn't experience it, but a different version of you did experience it. So they all absolutely happened. It's just a matter of how you perceive it. And this also involves the idea of parallel universes, where every decision and every possible reality that we perceive as not happening actually just created an entirely different universe where that event did happen. And according to that theory, there would be an uncountable number of universes just because of how many simple decisions that we make. Like, even my decision right now to not hold my breath for 5 seconds creates another universe.
A higher dimensional space, each one a complete universe with a complete version of you living it out to its conclusion. That 5-dimensional being looking down at your universe would see not just your timeline, but all possible timelines branching from the Big Bang. A vast branching structure of every way your...
Yeah, if we accept that the Big Bang was, in fact, the creation of everything, like the universe and just reality itself, then the replicating of universes or the creation of new realities started there. That just like every star that formed, that if an asteroid didn't hit it or something like that, that caused it to form slightly differently or be delayed by a little bit, that created a completely different reality where the creation of that star was delayed, for example.
Your universe could have developed, all coexisting as different positions in the fifth dimension. So there's a version of me that's doing really well? For you, unlikely. Now off to the next dimension.
Well, I know he's joking here, but it's not unlikely that in most situations that there's a version of this character doing really well, because in most societies there are a lot of opportunities that people have, and if you just happen to get lucky or guess well, and if you just happen to make all of the perfect decisions, you could end up being very successful and wealthy, and whatnot. And in some universe that did happen, where you just coincidentally picked all of the right decisions, because every decision exists. So in just one single universe among, like, far more than trillions, you did make all of those decisions that turned out to be the right ones. Just probably not in this universe or this reality.
Next dimension we go. The fifth dimension gave us all the possible timelines branching off every choice you've ever made. The sixth is where you take all possible 5D timelines, every version of your life, and treat them as one single point. Then you connect every possible history of the entire universe to it. It's not just, what if I became a dentist or a gigolo anymore? It's, what if Earth didn't exist? Or what if currency was bottle caps or spheres lit by divine magical energy? In the sixth dimension, every conceivable set of physical laws exist at once. There's a universe where pi is just 3 because no one understands irrational numbers. There's one where entropy runs backward. Light is a liquid, sound is flammable, and your taxes are paid with emotions like regret and despair. The sixth dimension is the complete phase space of all possible histories our universe could have had, from any conceivable origin point to any conceivable conclusion.
Yeah, so instead of it being based on the present, where or future rather, where you're looking at the new realities being created by decisions right now, it's looking at all of the possible decisions that could ever have been made and ever will be made.
Conclusion. Every version of every timeline, every possible past, and every possible future, all mapped as positions in six-dimensional space. Here's the staggering part. Your existence, specifically you, with your particular face and your particular memories, required an almost incomprehensible chain of specific events. Every ancestor meeting every other ancestor at the exact right moment across millions of years.
Yeah, that's why it's statistically so, like, incredibly rare that any of us exist, because it required a specific chain of events that caused you to exist rather than someone else who doesn't exist right now.
Years of history. Change one meeting, or have one person eat the red and white mushroom, or get eaten by a leopard, and you don't exist. In most timelines of the sixth dimension, you specifically are not there.
And this affects the future too, because using his example of that person who decided against eating that mushroom that turned out to be poisonous, if we do the same thing, that would change the future as well, because it could be the thing that decides whether a person in the near future exists, and, like, potentially, like, thousands or millions of people in the very distant future exist.
You are one of the rarest things in the multiverse, a specific person. And you got here by a chain of luck so long and so precise that it makes the chance of winning the lottery.
I don't think humans specifically are one of the rarest things in the universe, because this really applies to everything, that every past, present, or future decision alters the future drastically and more drastically as time goes on.
Lottery look like a sure thing. So, I'm special? No, you are cosmically improbable. I'm choosing to take that as a...
Well, I mean, I know he's trying to be funny, but in this situation, those kind of mean the same thing. Cosmically improbable and special, because really, I think the best word is unique.
As a compliment. Everything we've discussed so far assumed the laws of physics as we know them remain the same. Same speed of light, same gravitational constant, same rules for how quarks bind into protons. In the seventh dimension...
Yeah, we generally assume that the laws of physics that we know of apply to everything, but that might only apply to our specific universe, so depending on the sequence of events following the Big Bang in, like, the very distant past, like billions of years ago, that there could be different laws of physics that were created in one of those replications of the universe.
You take every possible 60 infinity of universes with different timelines and treat that as one single point. Then you connect it to another completely different 60 infinity, one where the fundamental constants are very different, or might not exist. We find universes where gravity is stronger or weaker by orders of magnitude. Universes where the strong nuclear force is calibrated differently, so atoms either can't form, or form in configurations you wouldn't understand. Universes where the speed of light is different, where Planck's constant is not a constant. Physicists think most of these universes are empty, but not empty like not much going on. Empty like physics plays out for a fraction of a second and then nothing interesting ever happens. Stars require a very narrow window of physical constants to form. Atoms require a very narrow window to be stable. Life, even in its simplest form, requires a window so narrow it almost seems designed.
Yeah, so in the vast majority of universes, there is no life. There's obviously something, but just not much, because it requires a very specific event to happen for most things to happen. So there are a potentially infinite amount of universes that are very sophisticated, even like more sophisticated than ours, but there's even more that are almost nothing.
The seventh dimension contains every possible set of starting constants for a universe. Most produce nothing. A small fraction produces structure. A fraction of that produces stars. A fraction of that produces planets. And a fraction of that produces the conditions for life.
But that can also be divided into a fraction where there are universes that are more advanced than ours, as I mentioned shortly earlier, that our universe might have been created from something that had the potential to go further, so the laws of physics might be primitive here compared to whatever the most advanced reality is.
This leads physicists to debate whether the constants being life-friendly means something, or whether we simply live in one of the rare universes where the constants work out, because those are the only universes with anyone in them to notice. Doesn't that kind of answer itself? Congratulations, you now understand the anthropic principle. I'm feeling very smart right now. Enjoy it. We're going to the 8th dimension next. So around the fifth dimension, you probably thought to yourself, my brain hurts, or what a bunch of poppycock flummadiddle steaming pile of nonsense. Well, you should have held those thoughts. Welcome to the eighth dimension. The eighth dimension treats every single 7D infinity of infinities of different physics megaverses as one single point. Then it connects that point to completely different 7D infinities, ones that aren't just different laws, but different ways of having laws. In simple terms, the lower dimensions let you explore what if this happened differently. The eighth dimension and higher let you explore what if reality itself was built on totally different foundations. Let's say you're a former neurosurgeon turned master of the mystic arts. In the eighth dimension, you'd see connections between sets of universes that don't share any common starting rules or math. It would be pure chaos. A universe where stars never formed. A universe where everything is made of noodles. A universe where you can divide by 0. And one where 0 you divide by...
Yeah, the reason why we have even the most primitive laws of physics that we have is because at the very beginning of reality itself that something happened, but if those things didn't happen, then every part of physics would be built on a different fundamental principle, and then every time that a new reality is created, it is created based on that same fundamental principle, meaning that the farther in the past that you go, that if like the smallest things divided differently, then a universe as advanced as ours that changed so long ago would be so different that it's impossible for us to ever understand, because our brains just aren't wired for that. Our brains and our bodies are wired for our physics, and if that changes too much, we just simply can't understand it.
Are you? Up doesn't exist. Time flows backwards. In string theory frameworks, the eighth dimension is also related to specific mathematical structures describing how the extra dimensions are compactified, curled up into shapes below the Planck scale. These shapes determine the physical constants of the universe we observe. Some physicists argue that different compactification shapes equal different universes. So it's not nonsense, it's math. Isn't that the same thing? Touché. The ninth dimension. This is where even I, your intellectually gifted navigator, struggle to explain things in a way the human mind can understand. But here we go. Just as we did in the lower dimensions, take every single sprawling 8D infinity of universes and realities and treat them as one point. Now connect that point to a completely different 8D infinity of universes and realities. Keep connecting until we have the massive framework of the ninth dimension. What we get is indescribable chaos. In the ninth dimension, you're navigating between entirely distinct modal realities, whole towers of 8D structures that don't share any common ancestor, no shared notion of beginning or end, and no agreement on the laws of physics. Structures for which your language has no words, because nothing like them exists in this universe or this reality. Everything that can exist, exists, whether you can imagine it or not. A nine-dimensional being would see all of this happening at once, completely laid out like a map on a table. In string theory and related physics, the idea of higher dimensions is different. Most versions require 9 spatial dimensions, plus time, making 10 total, or 10 spatial dimensions in M-theory, 11 total. Those extra dimensions are tiny and curled up, invisible to us, and are needed mathematically for the theory to be consistent. They cancel out mathematical problems like infinities or anomalies. They aren't about branching possibilities or multiverses in the same philosophical way. They're compact spaces where fundamental strings vibrate to produce the particles and forces we observe. My head hurts. As it should. If you understood any of this, you're either lying or...
Yeah, I mean, the narrator of this video is making out this character to be kind of a stupid loser, to be honest, but it's really not about being unintelligent when we can't understand dimensions this high. It's just that every dimension builds on the previous one as established earlier, and eventually our known reality of the third dimension becomes such a small fraction of those properties being built on that it's it's too much for us to comprehend, because we have to come up with visualizations of a reality that we can't prove or directly perceive. We just have to imagine it.
Or you're secretly my boss, and this is a performance review. The 10th dimension. This is our final stop, and where mathematics stops. In the model we've been building, and in string theory, which requires exactly 10 dimensions to be mathematically consistent, the 10th dimension is the point of completion. Here, you take all 9D infinities and treat them as one point, then connect it to nothing. You are now at absolute infinity. All possible universes, all possible physics, all possible starting conditions, all possible timelines, all possible histories, all possible configurations of anything that could exist in any...
This isn't infinity, though. It's just a number so high that it feels like infinity, because we can't possibly label it with a number, because it would take so much time to count that far.
Any form under any logic as a single, complete, unified mathematical object. It doesn't exist in anything because existing in is a concept from inside it. There you have it, all 11 dimensions.